Oh.
And so that drug is virtual reality, and it's going to have an impact in ways you can't even begin to imagine. So good.
Hey, can you hear us? You can't hear us, can you? I can't hear you either. We just tried. Still nothing, man. Okay. Oh, hey, how's it going? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear us?
I still have no audio for you if you can hear us now. Ah, okay, good. Okay. What's up, people?
How's it going?
Still no audio from you.
How's that?
Yeah,
hey,
there we go.
All right, so I'm getting an echo. Can you hear the echo?
I can't hear your echo, no.
All right, well, let's see if we can go with this. Hi.
Hey, Bob.
Fuck. So, in case you haven't figured it out yet, we are, and I think I'm just going to go to head. I don't want to fuck anything up anymore. So, in case you haven't figured it out yet, we're testing out new platform. It's called StreamYard. I've used it before, and then stopped using it because these platforms keep shifting in their capabilities, and they've just released a new feature which allows us all to record really high quality streams locally. So we're streaming to you, and it records the streaming feed. But it also records a local high quality feed and uploads it discreetly in the background to the cloud, which means we can download it, give it to Arvin, our amazing video producer, and then he can turn it into a high quality stuff that cuts out all of my screw ups like that. So yeah, so anyway, welcome to an experiment, a massive experiment. We're experimenting on all kinds of things. We're experimenting on a new platform. I've got multiple camera angles but unfortunately, now you can't hear me.
We could.
I left them both up. Like if I remove one and add the other, I don't know what's going on. So I have to play around. I have to watch the tutorial. I'm like stereotypical man. Don't read the instructions. Just
man, let's give it a try and see how it goes.
See what happens.
I think that's the faulty of early adopters, Bob.
Yeah.
And the other thing, so we've got, David Lugo, the VR guy with the Fro in the house. And we thought we would try, we just did this thing where he was just down at EVA in Dallas, which was the grand opening of a new amazing esports VR venue. And we recorded a bunch of stuff, which you'll see at some point, because we're going to have to produce that and get it out in the world. But he was like, hey, I'm going to this, VR arcade in Gainesville called Infinity VR Games. And I'm like, dude, let's do a live stream and check it out. And so we're coming live, we're recording. Dave's my remote correspondent for the Being Virtual show. And you've got a special guest, David. Why don't you take it over for a minute?
I do, yeah. So David, as Bob mentioned, and this is also David Herringer. Hello. Is that pronounced right?
Yeah,
Herringer?
David Herringer. Yeah.
Excellent. He is the owner of Infinity VR Games here in Gainesville. Oh, not again. Don't do it to me. Don't do it to me, Gimbal. All right. If it happens again, Bob,
Yeah.
we'll hold it. Live. Nothing's better than the live. Oh no, the other way. Cool. So yeah, David Herringer, owner of Infinity VR Games here in Gainesville, which is a really cool like VR only attraction, located in the outside of a mall. He's got a really amazing entrance. And tell us a little bit about your business.
So Infinity VR Games, we're running free roam right now, Hero Zone. So we're running their games, as well as VR Cave escape rooms. We're doing right now. So it's been a great model. Having the escape rooms have had a draw, and then the ones that want to have more action and more moving around are doing the Hero Zone stuff. So it's a great mix, some good laser tag and zombie killing. So
I love those descriptors.
David, tell us a little bit about how you got in the business and how long you've been running this place.
So it's been it was right after the pandemic, probably middle of 2021. I think I opened, and it was actually when Phenomena was first getting started. They approached me. I was looking for something that was laser tag for another business I have that's a mobile like video game trailer business. And I wanted something that was like a laser tag option, but it wasn't like an outside laser tag, like something that was still gaming. And so I started researching, and I found Phenomena, and I found that they were using something pretty cost effective for me to do, and researched them, and had some great conversations, and they were just kind of getting things off the ground and started, and that's where I started at. So I started working with them, and that was it was all laser tag at the beginning, and then needed more games, and then the VR escape rooms kind of were the next thing that came in, and were definitely a big boost, a big help. And then Hero Zone, we were actually just talking about this. They kind of courted me for a while, and I was like, oh, I already got some games, and it was nice that they just had some built-in 4 games that were already ready to go at the time. And it was just a no-brainer because I had people looking for something different, some different content. So it was a great opportunity, and we already had the stuff to make it happen. So
yeah, interesting. So many questions came up for me there, and I might not take them in the right order, so bear with me. But
no worries.
And there's a question from somebody about who your escape room provider is, and somebody else answered VR Cave. I can't see your names, by the way, if you're on Facebook. I do think there's a way to do that in the instructions of the event, or you can click on StreamYard and it'll let you put your name up there, and then we know who you are. Or if you just want to type that in before your comment, say, hey, this is Dave from wherever, here's my question. But are you using VR Cave? And one of my questions, tell me what it's been like. And one of my questions I have about VR escape rooms is that I think the escape rooms, people who like escape rooms are really puzzlers. Like there's a lot of hardcore people that go to escape rooms, and they like that visceral, tactile, analog nature of it. And the fact that the puzzles are real puzzles. And a lot of the VR stuff in escape rooms that I've done, at least, haven't really been very puzzly. They're more stumble upon clues and then figure out what to do next. More discovery than puzzle. Talk to me about your experience with VR escape rooms. How do people see them? Do you get escape room people? What are the puzzles like? Blah, blah, blah. Just riff on for a while.
Yeah. So I guess as far as the people that are coming in fact, for some unknown reason, we're actually getting like first rankings when somebody looks up escape room in Gainesville. That's what people are finding. And we have escape room people that are coming in, and they're just enjoying the immersion of going through the rooms. And when I explain it to them, I feel like especially VR Cave, I have not personally done a lot of other VR escape rooms, but VR Cave does have the puzzles, does have the things you got to figure out. But I like the gamification, and that's what a lot of people have been interested in. The gamification of there's a boss at the end, there's something to defeat. You're still doing it together, but there's like some sort of thing you're kind of conquering at the end to finish the room. So I mean, I feel like the escape room people have enjoyed it just as much. I've not had a person yet that has said terrible experience. We like escape rooms. That really wasn't an escape room. I feel like we've had some really good feedback from all of that. So
Yeah, and Bob, I personally played the pirate escape room that I think he's describing a bit, and like the puzzles were there. Like we sat in a room for a hot second trying to figure out exactly what the methodology of that room was, and then being able to cap that experience off with a huge battle against a kraken was pretty real. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We've lost your audio, Bob.
What I said was, are you hearing me now? I think I might have figured out the problem.
Back to the drawing board.
I figured out the feedback loop. I had this thing open on another tab, and that's why I was getting feedback. So, yeah, tips for you live streamers out there. Don't have the same thing open on 2 tabs. Rookie mistake. And by the way, for those of you that are interested in VR, VR Cave is going to be coming to the Amusement Expo for the first time, I believe. And we're going to try to get those guys. If you're listening, VR Cave, you really should come to the VR Summit and reach out to me. I think I've sent you an email. If not, I'll send you one after this, and let's see how we can't get you guys involved, because I do think VR escape rooms are.
I'll give them a nudge.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Are you coming, David or Bob? Are you David or Bob?
Which one?
Bob. I know Lugo. I got confused.
I'm David.
David, one Bob. Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Sorry.
Double D's.
So,
which is kind of like a B.
And how long do you run the escape? So, how long the escape room experiences, and how do you charge for them?
I do like my standard escape room price, $30 a person. So it's kind of mid-range like escape room prices. And their rooms have 6 of them total. They range from anywhere from 30 minutes to get to escape to 45 minutes to escape. So,
and how many people in them? How much room do they get? Let's go through just the technical
up to
aspects
6.
of it.
So I'm doing a 20 by 20, 6 by 6 arena, and I can do up to 6 players. Generally, I run 4 to 5, pretty consistently.
Yeah, cool. And one of the things that I find a bit ironic about escape rooms and VR arcades, and I've been, a big proponent of trying to move away from selling time as a VR arcade owner, because time's a commodity, and it doesn't leave you a lot of. Anyway, read my book, best. You'll get the whole riff on that. But with escape rooms, the faster you get out, the more you pay per minute. But does anybody complain about the fact that they got shorted on time with an escape room?
No, not really. And in fact, there's even a bonus game that VR Cave has on there that's still kind of an escape type feel, but it's just a little extra. It's like 10 minutes. Laser bots, you have to do these lasers and work together to kind of kill this big robot in space.
Okay.
And in fact, so if somebody beats it in 20 minutes, and it's a 35-minute escape room, we'll throw them in that game as an extra bonus, as just to throw in, and then they love that even more. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's how you manage it.
That's a great procedure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And for us, speaking of like I think selling experience, when I decided to do this, I didn't want to sell time. I wanted to sell that experience. And I think for the most part, that's what people are walking away with, that they're wanting to come back for. So we definitely have, whether it's Hero Zone or that, of course they want to know how long it is, but the experience of that escape room or that, that zombie shooting game or whatever is what they're coming back for. So.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned when you started out with Phenomena, and then you've added or migrated to Hero Zone. Talk a little bit about the differences between the two, and I'm going to ask you about the whole kind of nature of VR laser tag in a small space. I have my own, being an OG laser tag guy going back to 1989. I have my own opinions about that, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah. So with Phenomena, I mean, it was really, I loved working with them. It was, they were supposed to have some more games that were coming out, and I just didn't know at the time that I guess they were pushing towards their kind of VR esports type end, which is cool, but for me, I needed more games. And so it was kind of just the setup is very similar to what I do with Hero Zone. It was I didn't have to change anything to have Hero Zone, so it was kind of like, well, they have 4 games and they have a laser tag that, you know, is a little more in depth. There's opening doors and there's hazards and there's kind of other things going on in the space instead of just some walls. So it just, you know, it made more sense instead of having to change over arenas to go from laser tag with with Phenomena to using Hero Zone for the other game to just have, you know, Hero Zone. So.
And what was it? Are you able to run both platforms, not at the same time, but within your business? Is it difficult if you wanted to run VR, you know, their esports arena and run Hero Zone for the games? Can you do both of those?
I could. I would just need another arena. I mean, I could switch them over. It would just be like the setup you'd have to set up each one separately, you know, because they have different, you know, I think we talked about this at IAPA, but, you know, there's no cohesive, the setup for getting the room set up is different for each one. So
you'd either have to have 2 sets of equipment in the same space, including twice the headsets. You can't just push a button and switch between one provider to another provider at this point.
Correct. And that if that was there, that would be beautiful. I'd use both of them because I did, you know, I really do enjoy Phenomena's laser tag, and I think there's some good esports options that would be good for that. But yeah, I mean, the Hero Zone laser tag is awesome, and I mean, it has some great, you know, other functions of the look of the space. I think that adds a lot. So
yeah. So what do you so from a player standpoint, you know, there's PvP games, and then there's, you know, PvE, player versus environment games, and then there's co-op PvE games and team-based games. What do you find, like, how do you find in your business the content winds up getting, you know, like what types of consumers want what types of concepts and stuff like that? What have you learned so far about, you know, how do you manage and offer content to different types of customers, I guess is the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. I think the co-op PvE stuff has actually been, you know, the thing most people are gravitating towards. Like it's, you know, the laser tag, people still like it, they still play, but it does just kind of seem like, you know, after 3 rounds, they're kind of like, well, you know, let's play 2 rounds of the zombies, you know, because there's 2 different levels and I can do, you know, I do feel like that even though they enjoy that, there's only so long that they can just try to kill this guy and, you know, get the highest score and do that. So I've seen a lot more people just gravitate towards the co-op player versus environment type thing.
Yeah, I think, look, I you know, I always ask people, if you ever see a laser tag arena under 1,000 square feet and people laugh at me, you know, a typical laser tag, the smallest is going to be 2,000 square feet, and most of them run 3,000 and 4,000 square feet. And I think there's a reason, you know, for that. And I think if you're going to do laser tag in VR in a small space, you've got to play. And I haven't seen enough of this yet anywhere really. And I know some companies are experimenting with portals and elevators and things to make the space, like leverage VR to make the space feel bigger than it really is. And And I think we'll learn as an industry, we'll learn that and get better at it.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, Bob, the Archer game that Hero Zone has, I can't, the Arrow Song. They have like elevators and platforms that move that just it legit makes the space feel twice as big. And I love when VR game developers are able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think the best I've ever seen of that was a company out of Russia called Neurogaming. They had a game called Polygon. I'm still trying to figure out how to get that game ported over to the Focus 3, because it was, you know, it was 1,000 square feet, but it felt like you were in a 5,000 square foot, 5-level warehouse. And but it required like OptiTrack and backpacks. It was like a $300,000 setup. It just economically just didn't work. And so what's your experience been with the Focus? Are you, well, let me ask this. What headsets are you, I'm assuming you're using Focus 3, but a lot of arcades are using Quest and stuff like that. What headsets are you using?
At this point, I'm still on Quest 2s. I want to get up to the Focus 3s. I've just not been able to financially yet, but that is where I want to be at. But yeah, the Quest 2 is what I have right now.
And how's that work? Like I was an early, you know, I warned a lot of, more on the manufacturer, supplier side, developer side, to be careful developing for Quest because the licensing terms weren't there, and
Right.
and all of a sudden, if you only opted for Quest and they cut you off or bricked you or whatever, you were screwed.
Right.
You know, I think the risk for operators was really low. What's the worst that could happen? How many headsets do you have there?
I have 12. So I'm running.
Quest. The worst case scenario, you sell them on eBay, right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you know, when Phenomena had come to me originally, that was the pro to this, is like, okay, you know, for very minimal in the, you know, setup and money invested, I could get started and get going. And for my mobile option, that was the best thing. I was looking at doing a kiosk at first. There were like so many kind of things that kind of started with that. And so I think there's a lot that would work with it. But now I definitely see where something like the Vive would definitely be such a huge benefit to, you know, the issues that come with, you know, the headset, the Quest. So, I mean, I definitely think, I mean, it's been great so far. We've not had any major things happen. But it's, you know, it's got its quirks. I tell people all the time that if you could bypass, and we do try to bypass most of the Quest stuff, it's the headset's great. It's just Quest.
Yeah. What's how are you selling VR there? Like, not from a marketing and positioning standpoint, from a pricing standpoint. So you talked about the escape room games, which are, you know,
30.
which are one thing, but how do you sell your like Hero Zone stuff? And do you also have like room scale, like Springboard or synthesis based experiences too? What else do you offer there, I guess?
So I'm not doing synthesis yet. I actually had an onboarding call with them today to start setting up a few room scale options, because we have been looking some single player looking stuff. But as far as that, I do $20 a player for the Hero Zone stuff. And then I just started a multiplayer option where I'm doing 2 players or 2 games. It's $35 a player. And then 3 games, it's $45 a player. So then they're paying like $1 a minute. It just kind of, that's how I kind of sell that to them. You know, hey, you get 45 minutes. And then it goes up from there. If they want to do a full hour, it's $60 a minute. So.
And where are you finding any price resistance in any of that, or what's the market been?
No, now the multi-game options are newer, so I'm not seeing as, you know, I haven't got as much feedback yet, but I mean, so far that's been, when I say, oh, 1 game for 20 or 2 for 35, it's like, yeah, we'll do 2, or, you know, $45, you can do 3. And then that seems to be getting people's attention so far.
Yeah, really interesting. I was talking to a guy named Scott, who has a business in Philadelphia, an arcade called Oasis VR, and they will be at VR Summit also. And he's got this thing he calls the tsunami of minutes. And they sell like 200 minutes in a chunk for $199, and then they do discounts and stuff, packages off of that. But you can share them with friends, and that's like his big revenue driver. People bank these minutes. And then they bring their friends along, and then their friends buy minutes, and it's a big thing for him. And we'll be unpacking that with him at the VR Summit and talking about how that works. But yeah, there seems like the concept of packaging big bulks of minutes and letting people wind them down seems to be a new trend.
Well, I think it's similar to the Dave and Buster's concept. You got a card, you fill that card up, you just go to every machine there, and you can do whatever you want till the card's empty.
Yeah.
So
yeah, cool. And so do you see crossover? So do you see people come to either do the escape rooms, you know, because you mentioned your SEO, however you got there, you know, people search escape rooms and you're coming up. So are the escape rooms also trying the other VR, or are you finding that's 2 different cohorts of customers?
We have some crossover. I feel like a lot of who come in, they come in for either. Now, I will say, I think there's a lot more that do the games that are like, oh, I want to come back in and try the escape rooms. I don't see as many, like, I don't know, maybe it's 50-50. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think there are a lot of people that do. It's like they try one and they're like, oh, and you have a zombie shooter. So I do see a lot of cross promotion on that, and people like wanting to come back, and they come back and play something else. So
yeah, I think it's, you know, I've always felt there was an opportunity there for, escape room people coming in and experiencing VR, and then being like, oh, wow, this is really cool. What other VR can we do? And then the question becomes, what types of games might people who like escape room puzzle games want to do? And are they into shooting games and things like that? And so I think there's work we can do as an industry to learn more about the personas of people coming into our industry, and how do we really attract them and market to them to get them in and try different things.
Right. And I do think on that note, the types of people, so with Hero Zone, you have, you've got the Arrow Song shooter game, then you got the zombie game, and the mechanics of the two, the laser tag that they have and the zombie game are much more like, it's action packed. You're moving, you're all over the place, like, oh, there's zombies everywhere, and then of course laser tag, you're always moving. Whereas with the Arrow Song game, it's a lot more geared towards, like, you're having to think more. There is stuff coming over, but it's this big fantasy world. You're kind of standing in one spot. So somebody that's more of an escape room person, that maybe isn't all about like moving around so much and like running around somewhere, it's a really great game for them to jump into, because it's a little bit more, the fantasy people seem to be a bit more escape room people. So it kind of works out really well.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting insight. Like, and if you're out there and you're a game developer, and you're looking at these, kind of new compact free roam platforms that I'm as I'm calling them, I think that's a really good insight. Is, how do you, because there's this talk about, there's this kind of narrative, oh, we want fewer zombie games, and I'll let you address that in a second. But what your experience is running a business selling, all of these different experiences, including zombie games. But there's this narrative that we need something other than zombie games. But what are those things? And I think that fantasy shooters and bow and arrow shooters and things like that still are fun and competitive, but not necessarily zombies. And does that appeal to that different demographic? Elfin Assassin is one of the most popular VR games of all time. And in most VR arcades where they have room scale setups, that's one of the top. I think it's been on like the top 10 for Springboard for fucking 4 years or something. Yeah.
Well, and it's cool if you are out there listening, like Bob's saying, the idea with the Hero Zone Arrow Song is, it's not that you can just stand in one place and just turn and just shoot, what are they? They're orcs? No, they're not orcs. Goblins. You can shoot these goblins, and they're dragons and all kinds of crazy stuff. A necromancer. But then you also have this whole platform you can walk on. You can move the platform with a lever, and it moves across the arena, but not really. It's, so you're not having to do as much energetic wise, but you're still taking advantage of the idea of moving freely in the space. So it's just it's perfect.
Now, I just found out from David, what's your friend at Rabbit Hole VR?
Mitchell.
Sorry, Mitchell. I got a mental block against that name, and I'm gonna get it tattooed on my forehead or something. I'm not going to do that.
Mitchell's my buddy, man. That's a good guy.
David, talk a little bit about what you discovered about the lobby, or we don't have a term for it, but the cool arcade basement and the ability for people to. I haven't experienced it, so I don't even want to talk about it. But the ability for people to like vote on their games and create more of a social experience around VR, and especially as you start selling. And I'm wondering, other David. Did that lead to your thinking about selling longer sessions for Hero Zone? Why don't you guys riff on that whole thing for a minute?
Yeah,
we were just talking about this.
We legit. As soon as I got here, I was talking to him about a really good angle that Hero Zone has that I think no one else does. You can see Hero Zone in the background there. Is the social atmosphere that Hero Zone presents. And it starts off with this almost bar room-esque arcade that features a little like a high top table. It features a basketball shooting arcade game, a claw game, and an old school like arcade cabinet.
Playable now.
Absolutely playable. And the environment just feels so real. It feels like somewhere you and your buddies would go and hang out. And David was telling me that he has aspirations to offer that is a paid activity. Just the lobby. As an introduction to VR, you pay $10 for 10 minutes, as the $1 a minute price would go for David. And you just get to hang out in that room and throw darts and to shoot the basketball and pop the beers on the floor and open up the beer and
shoot the darts and we have a ton of people that will just go in there and 95% of my customers have never played VR before, and they know about it, they've heard about it, but never played, and they'll go in and they just, I have to ask them, and I start the games because I'm like, they're like, oh wait, we're just playing, oh yeah, we're ready to shoot zombies now, let's do this, but yeah, they will just keep going, and it's a cool space. Me and some of the staff here, we'll just get in there and mess with stuff and try stuff out. It's fun. And
so how does the system work? And by the way, if anybody has done this or has experienced it, I really want Hero Zone to name that. I think right now they call it the waiting room, which undersells the experience fucking dramatically. And so, if you've got any suggestions for what they could call this really cool kind of, basement arcade, I don't want to use the word man cave because that's just too exclusionary. But what kind of term could we use? But how does the system work as far as when you're selling? Because you said you sell games, so you can have 1 game or 2 games or 3 games, and 3 games would be 45 minutes, and so. But then people want to just hang out in the waiting room, right, or the lobby. How does the system work, and can you just sell them 45 minutes a time? And if they want to sit there playing the claw game for 45 minutes in VR, they could?
I essentially could. But so Hero Zone just added the option of multi-game play. So this goes to, Dave and I were just talking about this. This goes to the more social aspect of it. So they're playing in this arcade room. They're having a good time. They're, shooting the darts. They like the guns. They stick to your face. They just added a machine gun, dart gun in the claw machine. It's so hilarious. Cool. There's targets on the walls that are moving that you can shoot and get, 50 points, 20 points. And then there's an option now with this multi-game play where you can set up how many games they play for, and they get to vote. They stay in the lobby between games. The first game comes up, they stay in the lobby for like a minute and a half. After that minute and a half, it shows up to where they get to vote each person on which game they play, which level of the game they play, and if it's hard, extremely hard, easy, they select it, the time counts down in the lobby, and they go into the game. After they finish the game, it's the same thing. They're in the lobby for a minute and a half, and this goes on and on, however many games they want to play. So it gives them this great option of just really just seamlessly keeping them inside the system and playing until their 3 games are up.
And can you set the time length of those games, or are they fixed?
The games themselves, now there is a shorter gameplay, there is a way to abridge the games. And there's things there's selection of characters that we can not have. There's a shooting range in 2 of the games that you can take out that would not be there. So that would shorten the length of some things. But as far as that time in between, that they spend in the waiting room in the arcade, that time is up to, I think, a few seconds. You can actually minimize or extend that time.
Yeah, cool. So it's going to be really interesting to see how operators play with this kind of social interaction versus gameplay versus how do you package and sell games versus time. There's a lot of white space or clay to play around with to shape how these new social VR offerings, right, get into the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Bob, there's a really cool ability for on the operator side, You set those 3 games they might be playing, and then you just need to stand by and make sure that they're not messing with their headsets, because the system does everything for you from that moment on.
Right.
Which, I mean, it just sounds like a game changer to me. I'd imagine you'd need to load in each new game and get an actual pause in the activity, which would break the immersion for the players as you tell them, all right, guys, we're going to switch over to the zombie game now. Right. Now they get to stay immersed in this social VR world and choose to play games together. I think it's wild, man. It's game breaking.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, so a couple of things come up for me. Spot on, David. Great insight. One is the ability for people to spend more time in VR. Like the Quest is just not comfortable enough, in my opinion. Like I wear that thing for 20 minutes and my face hurts. And so from a customer experience standpoint, you know, the Focus 3 is like putting a fucking pillow on your face. It's so comfortable. And I can't say how disappointed I was. You know, I got the new Quest Pro and I thought, okay, finally, you know, pancake lenses and balanced and shit. And it's still not comfortable enough. Like after an hour, I'm just ready to take it off. And so it'll be really, you know, so I really highly recommend that. And then the other thing is like everybody, labor costs in for VR arcades. I was just talking to somebody yesterday and, you know, they were running 30% labor cost, you know, and they're trying to get it down to 25%. And it's, you know, predominantly room scale stuff. And they're running Springboard, but, you know, Synthesis the same. It's like, it's just such a high touch experience, and the ability to sell somebody an hour's worth of entertainment and put them in a headset and let them go and just keep an eye on them. It's much more like an escape room, right? Where you can have, you know, you can run multiple escape rooms with one room, you know, room master where they're keeping an eye. And if somebody needs a clue, you can give them a clue. But, you know, the labor efficiency to make money in the VR arcade market has been a real challenge for everybody. And I think that this is a glimpse into the future. And I'll just say 2 more things. I'm just gonna go full screen here. 2 more things that are really critical. One is that as more people get VR at home, differentiating yourself with free roam is going to be the thing, right? And so you're going to have more and more, you know, people that are going to be able to play games at home. PSVR 2 just came out, and I know it's expensive for now, but you know, there'll be millions of people with that, and more Quest 3 will come out this Christmas, and so the prices are going to come down. The product's getting better, and as a retail environment, you got to figure out how to differentiate yourself, and I think free roam is the way to do that for now. And then there was a second point I don't remember, so because I can't remember anything, I have Alzheimer's or halfheimers.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I always approach people. You know, people walk up and they're like, you know, and before they even see we have Quests, they're just like, oh, I can just play that at home. And I'm like, no, you can't do this at home. Like this is something that you play together. You don't have this side space, and it's not a game you can get at home. You know, it's not that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I just remembered the second thing, which is that you know, it's got to be so. I understand that the systems are monitored and metered by time. And so when I say don't sell time, what I mean is figure out ways to package the experience from a consumer marketing standpoint to where they're not necessarily buying time, but they're buying experience. And I think that, you know, like the VR escape rooms are a great example of that. You're not selling them 60 minutes of time. You're selling them this experience of getting in a room and trying to escape as fast as you can. And to that end, you know, the longer time you can give them, the more of a destination experience you become. You know, I think one of the challenges, you know, I've talked to the guys with Zero Latency, a bunch of their franchise licensees recently, and, you know, these 25-minute experiences, and this was the underpinning of the Void. The Void was selling a 15 or 20, 25-minute experience. It started at 10, and they kept getting longer and longer and longer until they ultimately went out of business. But the problem was, I call it drive-through VR. You're not going to put on pants and get in your car and go somewhere to do something that only takes 20 or 25 minutes or 30 minutes. Like, there's a reason that movies are minimum of 90 minutes. There's a reason that escape rooms sell an hour of time, you know, and I think that being able to sell somebody an hour-long VR experience plus the front end and the back end now turns it into a 90-minute excursion, you know, or a 90-minute occasion. And it's worth putting pants on and getting in the car, getting on the bus or whatever to go do. And so I think that that's just now the software providers all of a sudden giving you the tools to be able to do that in a way that's less labor intensive, because if you sell somebody an hour in Springboard or Synthesis in room scale, and they don't know, and then they're trying to navigate 60 different games or 100 different games, they don't know what they're looking for. It just creates confusion, and there's too much selection. And so I just love the idea of these curated experiences that people can be sold at a premium price point for a longer length of time at a low labor cost. That's how you make real money with virtual reality.
Yeah. Man, Bob, just on that point, from what I learned from Mitchell and Rabbit Hole VR, he has 12 room scale stations and Hero Zone Arena. He needs 1 attendant per 4 room scale players, and I saw 1 attendant for 6 Hero Zone players. And while I was working a shift there running the Hero Zone booth, I didn't have to look in and talk to the guys at all for almost 45 minutes, which was just a stark difference between the room scale attendant, literally like ping-ponging to each player, helping them with buttons, helping them with thought process on the game they're playing. So it's just the labor is like, that's just a hammer in home on the labor point for a Hero Zone room scale attraction.
Yeah, and even just going to 1, from 1 to 4 to 1 to 6, and I know people who run 1 to 10, so I guess it's very different. Depends on the quality of labor and the the awareness of your customers and what markets you might be in, and there's all kinds of variables there. But even going from 1 to 4 to 1 to 6 is a 33% reduction in labor costs, right? So, and all of that money falls to your bottom line. Every penny of that falls right to the bottom line. And so many arcades I see, they're making money on the top line and they focus on revenue. But when I ask them how much actual money they're pulling out of the business from a profit, and you divide that by the number of hours they're putting into the business, oftentimes, they've just bought themselves a fun, low wage job. Yeah, guys, this was great. I just really appreciate you doing this and your insights. Any advice? David, what's your advice for arcade owners, whether they're considering getting into the arcade business, or maybe they're in the arcade business, but they're not quite making enough money now? What have you learned, and what advice do you have for them?
Don't be in a mall. Whoa,
hold on. Let's talk about that. Why not?
Okay. So I'm in a mall location. I started in more of the center back of the mall. I probably had 5,000 square feet and huge space, great potential. Is an old Gap, and it was just dead. Like I could not get people to come back to the space. I had to close by mall hours closing. Had to be open 7 days a week the whole time. Just so many things. And I'm still in a mall location. I'm now at the front of the mall. I have my own entrance. I can do after hours. I can do before hours. And I'm finally starting to get some traffic and some move through, and some people seeing the space. So it seemed like a really good deal, and it was a hell of a lot of space, but it was not worth it.
Yeah. What do you find? What do you find as far as people coming to the mall? The reason that malls get the rents that they get is because they're supposed to bring traffic that you can convert to revenue. Right. What are you finding with people who are going to the mall? Are they your customers, or are you bringing people to the mall?
More so, I'm bringing people. Most people coming through, they're going to. It's the only Chick-fil-A on this side of Gainesville. It's literally like my door is people coming to get takeout orders and walking out, and then shoppers. So it's shoppers or Chick-fil-A. That's pretty much why they come to this mall.
Yeah, and there's something Chick-fil-A, man, in the South is big. Like freaking drive-through lines around the block. I was just in Atlanta recently, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, Bob, just to double down on that, I talked to a lot of people who started in malls, and they 100% out of 100, they find that they become the destination that brings people to the location. And the whole reason why you pay the rent you pay at a mall is because there is going to be built-in traffic for your business, and it just does not work out to be that way. But I know someone who was successfully able to negotiate that as part of their mall deal. They were such a unique VR attraction that the mall cut them special, like, I don't know, a deal on the rate and what they would require of that person, because they planned on them bringing people to the mall. So if you can use that as a negotiation tactic.
Right.
What kind of attraction set did they have there? Because that's pretty unique.
Yeah, they were going to be arcade, VR, and like family entertainment. I think there was like a nighttime putt, glow in the dark thing that was supposed to bring families to the mall itself.
So more of a family entertainment center than just a VR arcade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the undoings of the Void was that they went into these really high rent, high traffic locations, but found that, they sold all their tickets in advance, which means they were pulling people in, and so that you pay mall rents. And the reason that it's hard to negotiate anchor tenant rents, so the anchor tenants are the big box stores that drive traffic, that the little, it's whales and minnows, right? So you have Macy's in America as a big anchor, and then you have, they're the whale, and they get really cheap rent because they take this big space and they're bringing in thousands and thousands of people a day. But as a VR arcade, you don't have the scale or the throughput capability to drive that much traffic. So you're not a whale, you're not bringing traffic for other retailers necessarily, unless it's a really strategic type of location where the type of customer you're bringing in is going to be of value to some other business there, or they're trying to build an entertainment mixed use concept where they want you to add to that, that critical mass. And so, so if you're looking at location, malls are tough. And most people that I know, I'll triple down on that one, David, and say both Davids, and say that everybody I've talked to is that started in high rent have moved to destination and save on rent. Because again, every dollar you save on rent can go into marketing and or to your bottom line.
Yeah. And I will say for my specific case, fortunately, when I started this out, they did know that I could potentially be an attraction, and I did have some room to negotiate. They worked me out a great deal for this space. So there is that opportunity out there if you're just needing to start low and just say, you can always throw it out if you got a mall that's got spaces and be like, hey, give me a good deal and we may be able to do something. But like we're all saying, it's not the greatest. If you think that's going to bring people, it's not. So
yeah, cool. All right, so I cut you off because you went, don't go in a mall, and I thought that was really important to talk about. But what's your other advice as a closing scene here?
Other advice, low staffing. Definitely look at your staffing going in. I do run a skeleton crew. I mean, I'm one staff on shift right now for every shift I have. We're just not at a point where we need more than that at this moment. The way my space is set up is I can have one eye on the escape room, one eye to the other side on, the hero zone, and it works well. Once we get busier, I'll need more, but I mean, that works well now. Keep an open mind on new technology. I will say, I was telling David earlier that when Hero Zone, first approached me, I kind of brushed Sebastian off, and sorry, Sebastian, because I'd been kind of loyal to Phenomena, and again, still love those guys and what they're doing, but I'd been waiting on games, and I really needed something else to help propel what I was doing, and Hero Zone was what I had. It really made a huge difference after adding the escape rooms to have the zombie games, which have done quite well. So have an open mind to some new things that could potentially help move that forward. And marketing, just don't skip on the marketing. I mean, really, really work that. And have lastly, I would say I've learned from Hard Knocks experience, put your time into it as an owner. I hired a person to run the space after I got it because I was busy with some other things, and someone that was going to manage it for me. And I just was still learning. It wasn't a franchise that everything was like cut and dry and already known, and the Dave & Buster's where it just works, or is supposed to just work. It was something I was creating that wasn't a thing. And if you're doing that, I would highly suggest you be the one that propels and runs the space, at least for the first little while, because no one's going to run it like you, and no one's going to put that time and training into your people like you. So definitely put that elbow grease in if you're going to do it.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. The reason that there are no successful franchises yet in the VR arcade industry, at least in America, is because no one's figured out the model that's scalable and replicable yet. And a lot of people have tried, which is why you need to be in there yourself, and you need to be trying things and learning. And I do believe there are models. I'll shout out to the Park Playground in Europe. If you're looking at this business, everybody should take a trip over to Europe, either Belgium or Netherlands, or now they have one somewhere in the UK, Manchester, I think, and look at what they're doing. I'll try to bring more of that information into us this year. And you talked about marketing. I want to close out with Thomas Dexmeyer. Thomas, thanks for joining in. Thomas is the head of Australia for HTC Vive, and I'll be doing an event with him in Brisbane coming up later this month, which we'll have to record because you'll all be in bed. But he's asking about how you bring local traffic with local area marketing. Like what's working for you in the marketing sense? And we won't go into a deep dive there because again, that's something we'll cover at the VR Summit in Las Vegas. But what works for you marketing wise?
Honestly, it's still hard. I'm still figuring that out. I recently started doing a lot of Facebook ads, Facebook and Instagram ads. Those seem to be helping. Other than that, it's been, a lot of what, I don't know why I didn't talk about this. A lot of what I've been pushing for is like events and like working with businesses for like team building things and having team building stuff in here and renting out the space for a few hours. That goes really well. And so going to working with the local chamber and actually we have a great one in Gainesville, going to them and marketing it to the businesses, marketing to them, that has been great because I can charge $500 for 2 hours and, just run both arenas, have them in here. And it's a great working. So, I'm still figuring that out. So
yeah, and we could spend a whole hour on group sales, which we'll do at some point too in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, David, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your insights and your experience with the audience. Again, this is an emerging area, and nobody has all the answers yet. And if you think you do, call me because I'd love to know what they are. So, because I've been looking hard, and I think we still all have a lot more questions than we do answers. So, thanks so much for joining. And I have one last thing to say, which is, go Gators.
Nice.
Go Gators. It's going to be really popular when he airs this for advertisement.
Yes. There we go. Go Gators.
All right. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Being Virtual first live, I don't know what to call this, remote broadcast, I guess. We'll get better at it. We're going to be doing more of this. David's on the road a lot. I'm on the road a lot. And we've got a lot of content to bring to you. So make sure you go to bobcooney.com. Check out on the homepage. There's a link to the VR Arcade Game Summit, March 27th, 28th in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's going to be the biggest one yet. It's our 6th year. It's the 2 days before the Amusement Expo, which is kind of like the spring arcade show. You'll be able to network with probably more than 300 VR operators, from people operating VR in family entertainment centers to people running VR arcades like David. And everybody can learn from everybody. And there's a real cross-pollination of information that happens at this event. Check out the VR Buyer's Guide. Again, on my website, it's from the fall. It's from the Q4 of 2022, and it has a review of 50 different VR products for VR arcades, mostly towards FECs because it was tied to the IAPA show. I will be updating that guide in March. That'll have much more for VR arcades. It's going to have a whole free roam feature in it and talk more about larger free roam systems. And go to the beingvirtual.tv. There's a link to that on my homepage as well, and sign up for updates for more shows coming your way. And follow me on LinkedIn. PM me if you have questions. I'm here for you. And I just want to see more people make more money with virtual reality. So Bob Cooney coming to you live from Australia on behalf of David Lugo, VR guy with the Fro. Follow him on LinkedIn and on TikTok because he's cool and he has a TikTok. And we will see you next time. Bye.